be live.
Let's find out.
Should be.
I see a thing next to us.
Hopefully my internet cooperates as well.
Why am I so orange again? This is BS. I didn't look this orange on my camera. Am I?
There you go.
Maybe that. Yeah. I just need to stop. I use the blended light usually, but I guess that's messing it up.
All right, we are live, by the way. I just had that open.
Does that mean if I talk about the Epstein list, I get kicked off the show?
I mean, you might be put on thin ice.
He's not kicked off the show. Season 4 of Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays is over. Quote, unquote.
I mean, it makes sense. I think I just had a light bulb burn out, too. What is happening to me tonight?
The universe is not your friend today.
I mean, apparently. Like, good God.
I didn't write down anything besides my picks, which I did just now. I know who my best of the booth and stuff are, and that's it.
Well, that's good. See, I hate this glare right here. This is why I had a separate light that just burnt out on me. Whatever. I'm over it. All right. We ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I think my camera just went out again. Maybe not. Who cares? All right. Let's do it to it. And just like that, the 2023 NFL regular season has come to a close. Oh man, it feels good to be back. First off, let me start off and say my apologies for missing the last 2 weeks of the regular season. We had the holidays, we had some family stuff. It's a crazy time. But we're back, we're here for the playoffs. It's time. Welcome back to another episode of Booth Review. As always, I'm your host, Devin Primrose, joined by that Sultan of Spice, Mr. Peter Strauss. What's going on, man?
Not much. It's been a crazy couple weeks that we missed personally. It's been a crazy couple weeks that we missed, around the league. And give me 1 second as my wife just walked in. Okay, we're all good for the moment.
All right.
Ugh. But yeah, it's been a wild ride these last few weeks. For certain fan bases, it's been a roller coaster for places like Kansas City and Philadelphia. Been a high of a time if you're Detroit or Green Bay or Houston.
The Texans, baby. They did it. Buffalo too. We killed off Buffalo like 6 weeks ago. That was our legit counterfeit. Was is their season over with? Because we looked at their remaining schedule. And it's like, I mean, probably there's no way they make it in with that schedule. And here we are. They just won the freaking AFC East.
a lot of people thought, like, because they had to win out to get to where they are,
Right.
and a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't think they were going to be able to do it. But yeah, I think it was like 5 or 6 straight against a lot of great opponents.
Well, I mean, what's
They're
crazy
able to pull it off
also,
to keep their spot.
is that like, so if the Jags hadn't have lost to the Titans, then that game on Sunday night would have been for either the AFC East or them. They would be eliminated if they lost because they wouldn't have gotten into the playoffs because the Jags would have won the South, the Texans would have gotten the extra wild card spot along with the Steelers, and both
Yeah.
those teams would get in over the Buffalo Bills. But because the Jags lost, the Texans get the division. Bills are able to make it in, even if they had lost that game, which they didn't. But I mean, just
Yeah, it was
what a wild time for Buffalo.
It was the 2 seed versus the 7th seed, which, I mean, if they were the 7th seed, they would have just played Miami again.
Right.
So,
yeah.
As opposed to now, Kansas City gets Miami in Kansas City, and it's supposed to be -5 degrees. So,
Hey,
talk about home field advantage.
That's how football should be played, out in the elements, baby.
Got to take advantage of it while we got it, because it's not going to be like the last few years for us. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sticking to this week, speaking of that Houston Texans offense,
Yep.
we got to give a best of the booth to Nico Collins, who of CJ Stroud's 264 passing yards had 195 of them. Like almost like 80% of the yards went to Nico Collins on 9 receptions. And he got a touchdown out of that too. And they weren't like checkdowns or anything. An average of 21.7 yards a catch. He was getting them at the goal line. Some like tough catches for him too. They needed somebody to step up in that game with Stroud still recovering from his injury, with Tank Dell and Noah Brown, 2 of his best targets, both being out. Like, he was the guy. And he stepped up and was the guy in that game. Indy put up a fight. Jonathan Taylor also had almost a 200-yard day. It's hard to talk about this game without talking about that. And a brutal Kadarius Toney style drop there at the end, or MVS style drop there at the end, whoever you want to say. For the Indianapolis Colts, it was a tough fought game, but the Texans, CJ Stroud, one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in a long time from any player. And Nico Collins made it happen for him today. Or this week, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this Texans team's been fun to follow when Stroud's been out there. Even when they had their backup, I can't remember who the backup is currently, but whenever he was out there, it was a couple weeks when CJ was in the concussion protocol. I think a lot of people kind of wrote that team off as, okay, well, and us included, well, they had a good run. They're probably not going to make it in now that Stroud's missing time. They still pushed through. They still found a way. They got some help from other teams, obviously, but I don't know. Just the journey that team's been on has been a lot of fun to follow, and it really does start with the quarterback position because Stroud has seemingly completely turned that franchise around, and I think it's incredibly poetic that Browns have to face the Texans on Saturday. The only thing that would make that better is if it was Deshaun Watson out there, just for the storyline of it all. But
well, if they had Deshaun Watson, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. So
this is true. I agree with you, actually.
All elite Joe Flacco.
Yeah. But yeah, it just hats off to them, man. I mean, an incredible year. I think at this point, like if D'Amico Ryans isn't the front runner for Coach of the Year, we got some dumb voters out there.
Yeah, I think I might have said it a few weeks ago, but I was like, I think the winner of the AFC South was going to win Coach of the Year, or whichever of those two teams between the Colts and the Texans, whichever one made the playoffs, was going to win Coach of the Year. And I think he should definitely be the front runner for it. I don't know, maybe Stefanski because of how he's handled that Browns team.
That's the only other argument that I would accept would be Stefanski. And the other names that have been floated out there, like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, I don't disagree with those. I like those picks as well. I like those guys as coaches. And obviously what Shanahan's done the last 4 or 5 years out there has been amazing. and he somehow hasn't won Coach of the Year yet, which is crazy. But to me, like what D'Amico Ryans did with that team, where that franchise was last year, the year before that, and completely turning them around to winning a division is huge. Like that speaks
Yeah.
volumes about the leadership they have there.
Yeah, we'll see if he does win the award, if he can keep it up for more than 1 year, unlike last year's Coach of the Year winner.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm really hopeful we don't get a repeat showing of what happened this last year.
Yeah, but shout out Nico Collins, almost a 200-yard day, like solely helping CJ
Yeah.
Stroud keep his team, getting them a division win. They deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job, Texans.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Well, speaking of one team making it into the playoffs, we're going to go to another team that made it into the playoffs on Sunday. And I don't care if this is a dang homer pick or not, but my best of the booth is going to your boy, Jordan Love. The man coming off a great first year as a starter. Already arguably looking like a top 10 quarterback in the league. I mean, I know there's some people that would take the challenge, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find 10 quarterbacks this year that performed better than Jordan Love across the entire season. So might be a little early, but obviously he's looking that way. On Sunday, he looked fantastic. I get it as against the Bears defense, but the Bears defense has been looking better over the last 5 or 6 games. Jordan Love, 27 of 32, which is 84.4% completion percentage. Absolutely diced them apart. 316 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 128.6 passer rating. Just a fantastic day, capping off a fantastic year. I think he finished the season with some just incredible numbers. Let me pull them up for you. For all the Love haters out there. Finished 7th in the league in passing yards with 4,159. 2nd in the league with touchdown passes with 32. 9th in the league in QBR with 62 QBR, which it could be a little higher. His completion percentage on the year was 64.2, so that's something we talked about earlier in the season that needs to be up. He was hovering around 59%, 60%, about at the midway point, and he just went on a tear over the last 8 games of the regular season. They went 6-2. He had 18 touchdowns to just 1 pick. 1 pick. He had 11 picks on the season, and only 1 of them in the final 8 games, which is just incredible. I think the Packers are set up for potentially a spoiler this weekend against the Cowboys. I think that a lot of people would be surprised by that, but I think it could happen. The way the Packers defense played on Sunday, granted it is against the Bears, but they pressured the hell out of Justin Fields. He couldn't do anything. And I don't know, man. I think the Packers are playing very good football right now, and it's not a team that the Cowboys should just overlook. I think the Packers will definitely put up a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have really said anything better. Jordan Love, I think and again, he had a pretty not great first half of the season. He was overthrowing a lot of balls.
Yes.
Just wasn't super accurate. And maybe that's just the jitters of being, your first season as starting quarterback.
Well, I think it's also the chemistry. Like you have a bunch of receivers out there that are first year or second year starters, and you've got to build that chemistry with them. And so they're all kind of learning the NFL the same way you are, even though you've had 3 years to sit and watch guys develop and practice and get the reps and practice. This is your first year as a starter. And so all the wide receivers out there are doing the same thing. You're all kind of learning it at the same time. So it's just growing pains.
Yeah, I will say, I would never be surprised by a Cowboys loss in the playoffs because they are the Cowboys.
It's what they do, man. It's what they do.
This will be an interesting one for sure. Being in Dallas is going to be tough. Like, I think that's what's going to make it the most surprising to me if the Packers are the one to break that at-home win streak.
Yeah.
But hey, you never know. There's always one crazy game Wildcard weekend, and that's why it's Super Wildcard weekend now.
What sucks is that if the Packers do win, they're going to have to go out to San Francisco and face the behemoth that is the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, the Packers can't beat San Francisco in the playoffs anyway. So.
They've never been able to beat San Francisco. Doesn't matter if it's Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback. Really, they can't beat them.
Really, the entire NFC West is kind of the Packers.
Yes, you're not wrong. I hate that. Like, what I was really hoping for is that the Rams would lose to the Niners on Sunday, because if the Rams lost, then the Packers would have been the 6th seed, and they would have been going to Detroit for the first round, which would have been an equally as good game, and I think the Packers have a better chance of beating Detroit than they do Dallas. But, man, having to go through Dallas, and then if you win, you have to go face San Francisco. Those are the teams we always have to play, and more times than not, it doesn't end well.
I'm trying to see, because I know Carson Wentz came in the game, but I didn't know if he played the full game. Or
I think he played most of it, because Stafford sat out. They were rested, because they went into that game with the mindset of, like, okay, even if we're the 7th seed, we don't care if we're the 6th seed or the 7th seed. We're already in. We're going to make sure our guys are prepared.
Yeah, at that point, they're like ready to play whoever they're going to play. Carson Wentz, 17 of 24, 163, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 90.3 QBR.
Yeah.
And not throwing to Cooper Kupp. He did have Puka Nacua, but Cooper Kupp looks like sat out too, which makes sense. He's one of the older guys too. You don't want to necessarily get him messed up before that game. But honorable mention, Carson Wentz. Look at him coming out here and getting a start for the Rams and getting a win.
I mean, granted, it was against San Francisco's backups, but listen, San Francisco's backups are better than a lot of teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, they still had Elijah Mitchell playing. Deebo Samuel got a little bit in there. Brandon Ayuk was in there a little bit. I think they were just kind of stat chasing.
Well, speaking of stat chasing, that's a great segue into my under review, which has to be the New Orleans Saints. I don't know who on the New Orleans Saints, because it's all just like hearsay at this point. But allegedly, basically, let me break this down to you. The Saints were winning 41-17. They got an interception with about a minute and a half left, returned it all the way to the Atlanta 1-yard line. So they're on the 1-yard line with a minute 10 left. They're up 41-17. Can basically just kneel out the clock. So they send old Jameis Winston out there. Allegedly, Dennis Allen calls for them to kneel. That's the alleged call. Jameis Winston then says, no. We're not kneeling out this thing. My boy Jamal Williams over here doesn't have a single touchdown on the whole season. We got to get him a ton. So they audible out of the kneel, hand it off to Jamal Williams. He runs it in to put the score at 48-17, just rubbing it in the Falcons' face, which is incredibly disrespectful, especially in a rivalry game. Like, I get it. It means even more in a rivalry game. And I don't know who's to blame. I mean, I don't know if Arthur Smith should have thought Dennis Allen was to blame. If you can read lips, go watch that clip and fun little activities. Count up all of the blurred words that you see. Just awful. Like, I don't understand it. You're up 41-17. Just take the ball, kneel it, move on. I get like you want to get Jamal Williams a stat, but come on, man, come on.
Listen. I wholeheartedly disagree with you that they should be punished for this. Hold on, because it sounds like you didn't listen to the full interview and the full story of what happened. So let me break it down for you here. First of all,
break it down.
You don't have to say alleged. Jameis Winston in the post-game press conference said, yes, we as a team decided to get our boy Jamal Williams in the end zone because he hadn't had a touchdown all season after having 17 with the Lions.
But here's the thing: like, if it's as a team, then the coach should be on board with it. The coach should say,
that guy.
If your backup quarterback is saying screw that guy How does he still have a job?
He's
lost the locker room at that point.
No, Jameis Winston won the locker room. Is what happened.
Gosh.
No, but yeah, they got the call, victory formation. Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badger, got the interception down to the 1 yard line. And they were saying Jamal Williams didn't really get a chance to run the ball this year because of the injuries. They put him more in like a fullback position. And Jameis Winston came up. The call is victory, but we got to do this for our boy Jamal. What do y'all think? And the offense, I'll say the offense, because obviously defense, special teams, they weren't out there. They don't know.
Right.
The offense decided, let's help out our boy Jamal Williams. And he said he immediately after the game, like he told Dennis Allen what happened. He apologized to Dennis Allen. And I don't know if you know the podcaster. I think it's JOM boy. He normally does like baseball, fights with the umpires. Mm-hmm. But he broke this one down, and you can hear in the clip almost, and he was like, I didn't call that. Like Dennis Allen was trying to tell Arthur Smith, like, I didn't call it. I called victory.
I mean, it's still, like, at the end of the day, it just really, it makes Dennis Allen look bad. Either way you slice it.
Dennis Allen should be fired anyway. So if that's what you want to put under review for not having that control, but I don't. It shows how much Jameis Winston, like, even though he's been a backup now for a few years, like, just his energy and how much he loves his teammates and how much his teammates love him. Like, he came in and he said, let's perform a mutiny. And his team was like, okay. And they did.
I mean, yeah. Like, but that's what I'm saying.
How is that not a guy you want to have in that locker room?
Well, if I'm a head coach, I don't want that guy in my locker room. Because I don't want him changing the plays I'm calling. Because, again, it makes me look bad. Like, that's what I'm saying. Either way you slice it, Dennis Allen looks like a giant douche in this. Either he was run up the score against a rival just for the hell of it, or he has zero control over his players in the locker room. And either way, he probably shouldn't be a head coach anymore. So
no, he shouldn't. But I don't think we should be mad at Jameis Winston. I feel like almost any other player in the league, if they had done that, like everybody would have been on him. But like Jameis Winston is like, he was just so chill about it. He was like, yeah, you know, I asked the team, they said let's do it, and we just did it. I don't know. Like, you should watch the interview. It's a good interview.
I mean, you should do what the coach calls. That's your job.
I'm sure Jameis is thinking in his mind, either I'm getting cut after this game or Dennis Allen's getting fired after this game. So what does it matter?
Here we are 3 days later, and neither of those has happened yet. So
yeah, because Jameis Winston has united the team.
Oh my gosh. Well, Jameis Winston can be the head coach next year then.
And got Arthur Smith fired.
Oh gosh.
Man. There was a lot of firings this week that I'm sure we'll have to talk about, but I'll go into my under review real quick here. First, I'm sticking in the AFC South for mine, and it's a team that was in control of their destiny the entire season. A team who was like should have won the division weeks ago.
Yep.
And that's just the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if it was the change in like play calling with Doug Peterson kind of going back and forth with that. I don't know I know the last few weeks Trevor Lawrence has been kind of on and off with an injury. But this team just like has fallen flat. Besides the game against the Carolina Panthers, which is the Carolina Panthers, the worst team in the league, record-wise. And I don't even think Trevor Lawrence played that game. I think that was Beathard.
It was.
That played the Panthers last week.
Yeah.
Like, this team has just lost its mojo. It's like they had some magic, and all of a sudden it was like this season it was just gone. So they had a few games where they looked good. Like they beat the Colts pretty definitively in week 1. They beat the Falcons pretty definitively in week 4. Well, they beat the Colts twice actually, pretty definitively, both 30 to 20 something scores. And all of a sudden they lose 4 in a row. Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Bucks, which is a pretty tough stretch, but the Bucks, lose to the Bucks like that? I don't know. It just felt like this team didn't want it anymore. It's kind of how I felt about the Eagles a little bit earlier in the year, which they also apparently did not want it this weekend. I thought for sure you were going to go Eagles, which is why I picked the Jaguars.
I thought about it.
The numbers that they just let Tennessee have. I mean, Derrick Henry has barely had any 100-yard games this season. All of a sudden gets 153 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill, they only got to him twice sacking-wise when they have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. DeAndre Hopkins had some incredible catches too this game that they just let get through. Yeah. And I don't know what it's going to take for this team to get back in form, especially with how good, besides the Titans are fully rebuilding, but with how good I think the Colts will be next year with Anthony Richardson, and Houston keeps rolling. The Jaguars have a lot of work to do to retake control of the division, and I don't know if 1 year is going to cut it with how this team is acting right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. It's really surprising to have seen what they did this year with all the expectations that they had going into the season and what we expected to see Trevor Lawrence do in, what is this, year 3? Year 4?
I think it's year 3.
I think it is year 3 also.
Yeah, because
you had the Urban Meyer and then 2, yeah.
Which shouldn't count. But...
I mean, sure, but by year 3, you should see and get an idea of what your guy is going to look like. You should have an idea of like, this is what we can expect to see from him year in, year out by this point. And I feel like I said this. I might have said this in the Discord. I might have said it on the pod. But I feel like I might be at a point of saying that Justin Fields is more valuable than Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh.
And we all know how I feel about Justin Fields, but like, I haven't. This was the year to see that something from Trevor Lawrence, and I don't feel like we did. I feel like the closest we've come to seeing that guy is the second half against the Chargers last year in the playoffs. And I don't know. I wanted to see more of that this year, and I didn't really see it. And that's the problem. And whereas with Justin Fields, to me, while he didn't have like an extraordinary season, it was an improvement upon last year, which was an improvement upon year 1. So there's been improvement year after year with him.
Especially with the coach, the offensive line, and then for the most part, how the defense has been until the second half of this year, having to deal with all that and still trying to improve yourself. And because the coaching part of it too is, again, he hasn't been really running as much.
Right.
They're trying
Trevor Lawrence
force him to be a pocket passer.
Trevor Lawrence has a great setup down there in Jacksonville between Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones. Like, those are solid receivers. You got Travis Etienne playing behind you. Like, you got dudes out there. And I feel like you're in a much better setup than Justin Fields has been in. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm coming around to Fields. And I'm definitely not as high on Trevor Lawrence anymore. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Speaking of quarterbacks' futures, unless... I don't know if you guys do something different at the end of the regular season usually, or if you want to do a legit or counterfeit. But what I thought would be interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say we could real quick, legit or counterfeit. I could just run through some names of some quarterbacks, and you can tell me if they're legit or counterfeit starting on any team next season.
That's fair. Yeah. Let's do that. I've got something I don't know if it's legit or counterfeit, but it's something that I've got for you. So
Yeah. Well,
we'll do yours first.
We have less games to pick this week, so
Yeah,
we got a little more time.
More content.
Okay, let's start off. I'm kind of skipping like the top 10 quarterbacks here, but I'm going to start at Baker Mayfield. Do you think he stays a starter?
Oh,
Legit or
gosh.
counterfeit?
I mean, I'm such a Baker lover, and like he's played very well this year. Like, I don't think the Bucks make the playoffs if you don't get that level of play from him. Which I think was a nice surprise for everybody in Tampa Bay. Like, I don't think anybody thought thought necessarily that you were going to get that from him. So, man, that's tough.
Yeah, and it like especially since like he's had some games where he's looked really good, and then he's had some games where he looks really bad.
Well, these last couple especially have not been good, but
and
allegedly he also has some kind of rib injury going on right now, which we all know how he plays with injury.
Yeah, hurt Baker is bad Baker.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to say legit. I'm going to say that, but I don't necessarily love that answer.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you where I'm saying legit, not necessarily because of like him. I mean, he did get them to the playoffs. So in a way he does earn another shot to be their starter, but they also, unless they trade, don't really have a high enough draft pick to get like a great rookie this year.
If one falls to them, yeah.
And also the free market agency you look at, and like really besides Russell Wilson, I don't know who you get that would be better than Baker.
Well, you got Kirk. Kirk Cousins is out there, unless Minnesota re-signs him.
I was going to ask about Kirk Cousins. He's a little bit farther down the list, but yeah, do you think Kirk Cousins?
Absolutely, Kirk's legit.
Yeah.
Listen, Kirk to me is
they should keep him. They should.
Kirk's a top 10 quarterback, easy. Is he top 5? I don't know. The way he played early in the season, he was looking like a top 5 quarterback, but he's definitely a top 10, like 8 to 12 type range is like where he slots in every single year. And if you're mad about that as a Minnesota fan, shame on you. Like, you should absolutely want to keep him around. Unless you are perfectly fine with trading up to go get a top level quarterback and risking your future with that guy and hoping that it plays out. If you're okay with that, cool. But if you want to get the best out of Justin Jefferson now and Jordan Addison, Kirk is your dude. Kirk can go out there and get them, 100-yard games, 2-3 touchdown games in and out every single week. If you keep him around for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
the offense will be rolling with him.
I think he should stay in Minnesota, and even if he doesn't stay in Minnesota, like there's a bunch of teams that like need a quarterback that don't quite have high enough draft picks. I think that would take Kirk Cousins over some of the other options in free. Like he probably of quarterbacks that potentially could go into free agency. I think he's the best one. Like besides Russell Wilson, that's available.
Yeah.
Again, another quarterback that got their team to the playoffs, or almost got their team to the playoffs, didn't quite get there. Gardner Minshew.
Counterfeit.
You don't think he's earned a starting job somewhere?
No, Gardner's a backup. I mean, he just like, I think the Saints. I mean, I don't really know what the hell happened with the Saints. Honestly, I genuinely don't know how they got into the position they were in. Because like you watch that team and nothing stands out as far as, oh yeah, this is spectacular. Like Jonathan Taylor looked really good in that game against the Texans, but he hasn't looked like that all season. Gardner Minshew's had a handful of games here or there where he's looked really good, but obviously he hasn't looked like that all season. The defense hasn't played exceptionally all season. They've played fine. So it's like I don't understand how they got there. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is the reason they got there. I think that the whole team just was good enough.
It's Grit and Shane Steichen.
Yeah, yeah, that's 100%.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I love Gardner Minshew, but I just don't know where he would go be a starter instead of somebody else.
He's a great backup.
Maybe if like, because there could be a couple other teams where like quarterbacks retire, like maybe the Rams, like Matt Stafford could hang it up after this year.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That might open up another spot for him, but yeah, as of right now, I think he'll end up being a backup. He would be a good backup if you have a quarterback who's injury prone, uh, like Anthony Richardson has been, or Baker Mayfield seems to be. You could put him behind Baker. But yeah, I agree with you that he will probably be a backup.
Yeah.
I just lost your camera. I don't know if you're still there, but
yeah, I'm still here. It's just being wonky.
Okay. This is my last one, and I think this is the most fun one because it's a little bit of recency bias here with this team. Mason Rudolph.
Oh. Mason.
3-0. 3-0. Got him to the playoffs.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say the same thing I said about Gardner Minshew, that like Mason's a really good backup that's done a great job, and I think that's what you can. I think that's the guy you want as your backup, a guy that's going to be reliable, that's going to get you some good starts, but isn't a guy that you can sit there and say, I want you starting all 17 games. And that's how I feel about Gardner Minshew, and I feel similarly about Mason Rudolph. I felt the same way about Nick Foles, like back in the day when Nick Foles went on that run with Philly. Like, he's a really good backup, but should he be the starter? Probably not.
Yeah, it's tough because he's just like revitalized. Between that and Matt Canada being gone, this team feels revitalized for the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't think Kenny Pickett is like much better.
I don't expect Pickett to be the starter next year. I don't know who's going to be the starter, but I don't think it's going to be Kenny Pickett. But I agree with you. Like, Mason Rudolph has played well enough that like I heavily thought about picking them over the Bills. Just because, like, it wouldn't surprise. If TJ Watt was playing in that game, if TJ Watt didn't get injured, I don't know, man. I think I might have gone for the upset. Which we'll get
I thought
to that.
about it too. Did you see? I think I posted it in the Discord of JJ Watt being like, "Do you think they would notice?" And like superimposing the number 90.
Come out of retirement, JJ, just for a game. Let's get it done.
Or just for the playoffs. Maybe if you guys beat Buffalo, you get to share the field with your brother.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Did you have any other quarterbacks?
I guess the last one, which I think we're both on the same page as, but I think the biggest discussion of these quarterbacks would be Justin Fields, whether or not he's earned his place as a starter, or if the Bears with the number 1 overall pick are going to move on.
In my opinion, I think that Fields has shown you enough that you should stick with him. And if you look at that connection between him and DJ Moore, who you went out and got for him, you look at the way that connection has formed over the season, it looks like a pretty dang good connection. You've got a handful of other offensive weapons there. If you're smart, you'll go get another one with a high draft pick in Marvin Harrison Jr.
Or Brock Bowers.
Yeah, well, they've got Cole Kmet, so it depends, yeah.
He's a little older, though, isn't he? I thought.
I mean, he's only been there for like 3 or 4 years as well. But in my opinion, what they should do is trade the number 1 pick to one of those teams sitting in like the 2 through 5 spot. They would like to move up to go get Caleb Williams or whoever they think the savior of their franchise is going to be. Um, get a little extra draft capital for that. You move down a couple slots. Marvin Harrison's still going to be there. Take Marvin Harrison, then you can go get yourself a top 10 defensive player with the 10th overall pick. And then whatever extra draft capital you get, that's just bonus on top. I think that if you're going to stick with Eberflus, which they are apparently, then keep Fields around because Fields is used to that system and he knows that system. And so see what you got with him. I say give it one more year. Give it one more year because again, Fields missed a good chunk of the season, so you didn't get to see him for a whole year. Hope that he can stay healthy. Hope that you get a whole year and you can evaluate what you got next year. The tough part about that is that this year's quarterback draft class is very good. Very good. So it's tough passing on that this year. But I think I've seen enough from him to say, give him another shot.
Yeah, I think he should at least start somewhere, even if the Bears decide to move on with that pick. There are plenty of teams that need quarterbacks that are kind of in limbo and are going to be looking at free agency or trades. Like I said, if Matt Stafford retires or Commanders will probably want a new quarterback with whoever ends up being the head coach there. Hopefully it's Bieniemy, but the fact that they haven't announced it yet is still kind of weird. But Atlanta, I always thought Atlanta would be a good fit for Fields, depending on who they get as the head coach now. But
could be, yeah. Well, speaking of head coaching openings, so as of right now, just so we have, we run through all the openings, the in-season firings that happened. Obviously, Panthers let go Frank Reich, Raiders let go Josh McDaniels. The Chargers finally fired Brandon Staley. Those are all the ones that happened in the season. Then on Black Monday, you had the Falcons firing Arthur Smith. You had the Washington Commanders firing Ron Rivera. And then on Tuesday, weirdly, you had the Titans firing Mike Vrabel. And then as of today, the Seahawks have parted ways with Pete Carroll, which parted ways with him at the head coach. Apparently, he's still staying on in some sort of advisor position.
Yeah. Did they fire him or did he retire?
I think the way that it was phrased in the statement I saw is that they decided to mutually part ways or evolve from the head coach position to an advisory position.
God, what's his name? Bruce Arians? They Bruce Arians him.
It kind of seems like, yeah.
Which is like, I don't understand. Unless Pete Carroll wanted to do that. Like, he still seems, he's like 71 and he's still so pumped up on the sideline. Like, he's taking off his shirt and like banging his chest at practice. Like,
I don't, it's weird. It's weird. The only other team that is allegedly still possibly might be an opening is the Patriots if they do in fact move on from Bill Belichick, which as of right now, it is Wednesday, 3 days after the season ended. He still has a job. So we'll see if that opens up. So there's currently 7 openings between the Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, Titans, and Seahawks. In your opinion, which is the best destination?
Let me look at the draft order real quick.
That does play a part too, yeah.
Do they have that on ESPN? Draft. Okay, hold on.
They might have it. They might not. Oh, the other one that might open up is allegedly if Dallas underperforms in the playoffs like they tend to, Mike McCarthy would be gone. That's what's been floated out there. So if the Packers do in fact spoil Dallas' season on Sunday, then old Mike is gone.
Okay, let's see here. Chargers have a lot of talent and a top
A
5
lot of talent.
pick. Commanders have the number 2 overall pick with a decent amount of offensive talent. They just got rid of all their defensive talent, though.
True.
Titans are completely rebuilding. They have a top 10 pick, but they're completely rebuilding. I think Falcons is definitely pretty high. I think I would put Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, because the ownership is new too, and it's
Yeah.
you know, you could be the guy that comes in and turns the team around along with the new owners. Is
Right.
probably yeah, and then Seahawks would kind of be in the middle, because they still have a lot of decent talent. Still a little bit of a question mark at quarterback, but
Yeah.
they almost made the playoffs, so they don't have quite a high draft pick. Although they have picks, I think that they can work with if they want to trade from the Russell Wilson thing. Panthers are at the bottom. Panthers are the least desirable there.
Yeah.
Who am I missing?
You got the Raiders, the Titans.
I didn't say Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, Raiders are kind of middle of the road for me too. That might just be a personal bias. Like they do have some talent there still. It's hard to consider the Raiders open because if they don't hire Antonio Pierce, then they deserve to lose forever. Like to have two interim head coaches to either make the playoffs or almost make the playoffs or whatever, and then not hire that guy a second time who's also bringing the culture of your team around. Like he fits the Raiders so well with what we've seen. Like I barely consider that position open because if they don't hire Antonio Pierce, then they deserve to lose every football game they ever play for the rest of the franchise.
Fair.
Yeah. I would put Chargers and Falcons are my top 2. They would be right at the top.
I agree.
The other openings don't have a lot of downside. They're just more so rebuilding than it is or not having the draft capital to get the quarterback that you need. That makes it a little tougher. And then the Panthers is just a dumpster fire. Not a lot of talent, bad owner. You might become the highest paid coach because he's gonna have to shell out some money to get somebody to go there.
Yeah, I think so. I think Seattle's interesting. There's obviously a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball. There's still a lot of work to do. They're definitely some kind of in that quick rebuild mode to where they can still be competitive, but how competitive? The Titans are a tough one because they're basically in complete rebuild. Derrick Henry's not going to be back. You don't have a quarterback. Just a lot of question marks talent wise across the board. But yeah, I think Chargers are I had the Chargers going 15-2 this year. I had them going 15-2 because of the talent on that team. Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback. Austin Eckler looked like a poor man's Christian McCaffrey over the last couple of years, and I don't know what happened to them.
Do you think of the names on defense too, and how awful that defense has been?
Yeah. You got Bosa, you got Derwin James. You have known superstars on both sides.
Khalil Mack's been a monster for that team since he.
I completely forgot Khalil Mack was there. That's how much talent's on that team is that I didn't even didn't make sense to me that Khalil Mack was even there with them. Yeah, you're right. That team on paper is that's a championship contending team. They just have had a bum coach for 3 seasons now, and it took them way too long to get rid of him.
It's like if you had Josh McDaniels as the 49ers head coach.
Oh my gosh. That's probably a perfect example of what it is. Perfect example. Yeah, to me, that is the destination. And then the other one is the Falcons, because I do think the Falcons have a lot of good young pieces And then there's like a handful of decent veterans there. Um, so
Yeah. And
I just think this is
the Falcons have enough leeway because they're the number 8 pick, and I think
right.
they have enough leeway to where they can either be like, okay, like we can get a good quarterback in the draft, or they have a high enough draft pick where they can be like, okay, we can trade for somebody like a Justin Fields or a
Right.
Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson,
Yeah.
and be happy with it because as long as you get a coach that uses the talent that you have, then
Yeah. Yeah. Actually gives Bijan the ball.
yeah. Um,
Actually, they can find a guy that can toss the ball to Kyle Pitts and toss the
yeah,
ball to Drake London. Yeah.
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 That team with the right coach and the right quarterback pick this year is scary.
Yep. I agree. I agree. Well, hey, man. We've played 18 weeks of football. We've got a handful more. It's time for the best time of the year. January football. The postseason is here. And I say we get picky with it. Wrong music. I say we get picky with it.
Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it.
This is what happens when I take 3 weeks off of the pod. I just forget my buttons over here.
You have no idea how hard it was to not laugh when you start because I was about to laugh like the hardest I've ever laughed. And then you said it again, and I was like, "Oh no! If I laugh again, I'm gonna ruin it."
Well, starting us off on Saturday over on NBC at 4:30 in the afternoon, we've got the number 5 seed Cleveland Browns, 11-6, just looking dominant down the stretch with all elite Joe Flacco heading in to the AFC South Division winners, Houston Texans, 10-7 on the season, getting it done on the final day of the year. On the road, Cleveland, 2.5-point favorites. I think that's fair. Cleveland is the better team on paper. This is a team that has pushed through the adversity. They lost Nick Chubb early in the year. People thought, oh, well, what a shame. They should have been good. They lose the best running back in football. There's the year for them. Deshaun Watson looked fluky, and then he goes out with a shoulder injury because he did not get enough massages, and and they struggle at quarterback between PJ Walker and DTR, and then Joe Flacco out there on the streets. They say, "Hey, old friend, come be our quarterback," and they've just gone on a tear since then. Had a moment there where they were in the mix for the division. Obviously, the Ravens get it done, but the Browns, man, Browns are legit. Browns are here, and who would have expected they'd be back in the playoffs, looking as good as they look? I have them beating the Texans. I don't like it. I really want to pick Houston here, but I just think the Browns are too good. And if Houston was if Houston was playing any other team in the playoffs outside of the number 1 seed, obviously, I think I would pick the Texans over them. But playing the Browns, I think it's going to be too tough. So I've got Cleveland. Who you got, man?
So these two teams did play earlier in the year, but CJ Stroud was not playing. And I was going to pick Houston, and then CJ Stroud was still concussed. And so I'm going back to my roots. I'm going with my gut. I'm going with the story I want to see happen.
Love it.
I am taking the Houston Texans to win this game, get the upset at home. This is, I think, this or Rams Detroit is game of the week. Like, I wish this game was at was a night game. I mean, it's Saturday. It's the only game on. It'll still
Yeah.
be easy to watch, but this should be a primetime game. This game's going to be fantastic.
I really hope that it lives up to the billing because I'm with you. I do think this game should be very good. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns kind of obliterate the Texans. Something like a 31-17 type score. I could see that happening. I don't want to see that happening, but I could see it happening. It's Houston's defense. It's Houston's defense. That's what worries me. I think they have some good defensive players. Obviously, Will Anderson has looked really good for them throughout the year, but I just don't know, man. I don't know if they can keep it together enough against that very good Cleveland offense.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm hoping it's a close game. Hopefully they get some people back too, because Noah Brown was still hurt. He didn't practice today, so there might be a chance he's gone. Will Anderson Jr. was on and off the field all day. Says he didn't practice Tuesday. It doesn't say anything about today, so maybe he was back today. That would be nice if Will Anderson Jr. was around. But yeah, I just want to root for the Texans. It's nothing against this Browns team. I just want to make it clear. I do not hate this Browns team. I like their story as well. I like Joe Flacco coming off the couch and have it be a miraculous story that the Browns were kind enough to give him $75,000 week 18 for not playing. It's a joke. It's a joke. Deshaun Watson made more money not playing the whole season for that game.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco made for that game. But
yeah.
Regardless, I just like CJ Stroud a lot. I like this Texans team a lot. I don't know when the last time we've seen a rookie quarterback win a playoff game. I can't think of a recent time that it's happened. And CJ Stroud, I think, deserves to be the one to do it for the first time in a while.
It probably happened a couple years ago, I would bet. I can't think of it either.
Well, I don't know. It definitely didn't happen last year because the only rookie starting quarterback was Kenny Pickett. Mac Jones made it to the playoffs but lost.
True.
I'm trying to think the playoff teams the year we went to the Super Bowl and lost to Tampa Bay. I can't remember the last time it's happened, but it's been at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Well, that takes us to Saturday night. We have the paywall playoff game. If you don't know, this is a Peacock exclusive, which Peacock I believe is $5 a month. Which, oh well, $5, but I should not be having to pay extra for a playoff game. If I'm already subscribing to a cable service or a streaming service, I should not then have to subscribe to an additional streaming service for a dang playoff game. Regular season, okay, I'm fine with it. But if I want to watch Dolphins Chiefs, I should be able to do that. Dang it. At 8 o'clock on Peacock, we have the 11-6 sixth seed in the AFC, Miami Dolphins, heading into the freezing cold temperatures of Arrowhead to take on the 3 seed AFC West champion Kansas City Chiefs, 11-6 on the season. Listen, it's just the rich get richer every year. It just keeps on going. That's just how it goes. Patrick Mahomes is just going to keep winning that division, probably keep making an AFC championship game every single season until he retires, because we're looking at Tom Brady 2.0. But at home, Kansas City, 4.5-point favorites. You know I had to get my jabs in, man. I had to. 4.5-point favorites. 4.5-point favorites at home for the Chiefs. I think it's fair. I think that it's hard to bet against Kansas City at home at Arrowhead, especially when they're playing in single-digit weather against a team from Florida. Man. I'll have you know, I initially wrote down Dolphins over Chiefs, and now I'm totally rethinking it. mainly because of everything I just said about Miami,
like,
the Dolphins being from Florida, it being cold, it's the Chiefs at home in the playoffs. Like, how can you bet against Patrick Mahomes in those conditions? Oh, man. It's also the Tyreek Hill revenge game. I'm doing it,
tough
man.
choice for you, isn't it?
I'm doing it. I'm going with the Dolphins. Back-to-back playoff games we're disagreeing on. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, my only worry about this game is if the receivers already have a hard time catching the ball, so like if their hands are cold and turn into literal ice blocks, it might be a problem. I think
Kadarius Toney ain't catching nothing.
It's playoff time. We need to lean on Isaiah Pacheco. Patrick Mahomes does not want to be a game manager. He needs to be a game manager at this point with what we have, with how we've played, with everything that's going on. If he wants to win these playoff games, he has to be a game manager. And I mean, that being said, still at home at Arrowhead, single-digit degree weather. Miami, especially Tua, has never played well in that kind of weather, so I'm going to stick with Kansas City, obviously. But yeah, brave of you. I'm proud of you for being brave.
Listen, man, I just I have a feeling, I just
Well, I hope you're wrong.
I like Miami. I don't think they do well against the big dogs, but I feel like Kansas City has just struggled so much, especially down the stretch of the season. Like you talked about in the opening, the Chiefs and the Eagles both just kind of in a weird spot. And I think the Chiefs are very vulnerable right now.
That is true. Although the difference between Chiefs and Philly is that the Chiefs defense is good enough to also lean on them. Like, if we can keep the Dolphins under 20 points like we've done to almost every other team this year, then I would say we have a pretty good chance of winning. So,
yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to Sunday. And starting us off Sunday at 1 p.m. over on CBS, we have the 7th seed in the AFC, the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. Somehow, Mike Tomlin just takes a garbage team and gets wins out of them every single year. That's what you can bet on every single year, is that the Steelers will have a winning record and probably somehow sneak into the playoffs. But they have a tough task in front of them, facing probably the hottest team in the AFC, the 2 seed Buffalo Bills, 11-6 on the season, at home. Buffalo, wow, this is a massive spread for a playoff game. Buffalo, 10-point favorites over the Steelers. That's crazy, especially when you consider these two teams are 1 game different in their standings. Like I said, I wanted to pick. I really did want to pick the Steelers in this. And I think if TJ Watt was playing, was healthy, then I would very much consider it. But without him, it's going to be tough for that defense to get stops. And I don't know if I can trust Mason Rudolph to get the job done on the offensive side. So I've got to go with Buffalo just kind of by default. I don't love it because I don't think the Bills are. I don't think the Bills are playing exceptional. You look at the first half that Josh Allen had against Miami on Sunday. Was not great. It took a rousing second half from him to get them to win. So
and a punt return touchdown, right?
For that too.
Buffalo?
Yes. So I don't love picking them, but they get to play the Steelers, so they get the pick by default. So give me Buffalo. Who you got, man?
Yeah, I'm with you. If TJ Watt was playing, I would definitely be more on board with picking the Steelers, because there's always some kind of sneaky, upset that happens in these playoff games. It would be really fun to see Mason Rudolph beat the Bills.
It would be. It would be.
And also, personally, selfishly, I am rooting for the Steelers because it means we get another home playoff game if by default.
Yeah.
Because the 2 seed would be out. So, but I'm still going to pick the Bills. I think they've been able to, even though it's barely, the Steelers have been playing well. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a close game. But without TJ Watt, that playmaker on defense, I just don't see the Steelers stopping the Bills enough to get the win.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Well, that brings us to the afternoon game on Sunday, 4:30 p.m. over on Fox. Time to get into the NFC side of things. We have the 9-8 Green Bay Packers. Everybody counted them out, and they just kept on pushing. Got a couple of nice upsets in the middle of the season to propel them along the back half, and they finished the season at 9-8, sneaking in as the 7 seed. And because they are the 7 seed, they have to go out to Big D, where we have the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys waiting for them. Whew! It's a tough task. Dallas at home, 7.5-point favorites. Ooh. I think that's a little disrespectful. I get it. Dallas is good. But this Packers team is coming in hot. They've looked good. They had a couple of stumbles here and there over the last couple of weeks, but they looked good over the last couple of games. And I'm picking them, man. I've got a feeling. Like you just said, there's always some kind of weird upset that happens in the playoffs on Wildcard weekend. And I think this is the one. Give me Green Bay. It's playoff time, man. I've got to be a homer in the playoffs. Give me Green Bay. Who you got, man?
Yeah, we're gonna disagree on this one too. I'm gonna go with Dallas. It's the smart pick with how Dallas has been.
It is the smart pick.
It, especially at home. If this game were in Green Bay, I may reconsider. But
that's fair.
Dallas, especially Dak has still been playing MVP caliber football. He got written out of the MVP race 4 weeks ago, and we just decided to never put him back in. But no, Dak's still playing well. CeeDee Lamb's still playing well. Their defense is still playing well. I think Green Bay could put up a fight, but at the end of the day, I think Dallas takes the win here and will move on to play somebody. We'll figure out who. Move on to play somebody in the next round.
Yeah. Hey, fun fact. The top 2 quarterbacks in passing touchdowns are playing each other this week. And
is that Dak and Love?
It's Dak Prescott and Jordan Love.
Good for them.
This is what I'm saying. Let's give Jordan Love some respect, man. He's had a good season.
I'm not the one who disrespects Jordan Love in the Discord. That's not me.
Oh, listen, I'm well aware of who it is. I'm well aware of who it is. About that. I'm more or less speaking to the 7.5 point spread that Vegas decided to give this game in favor of Dallas. I don't like it.
I don't think that's necessarily because of Jordan Love. I think it's because you guys still haven't fired Joe Barry.
Good points. Good points being made.
And this is one of the best offenses in football.
Good points being made. Well, let's go to the Sunday night game. We have the 10-7 Los Angeles Rams heading into Detroit to take on the NFC North Division winning Detroit Lions, 12-5 on the season. This game, 8 p.m. over on NBC, Sunday Night Football. Detroit at home, 3-point favorites. But We get Matthew Stafford's return to the place he used to call home, the team he used to call family. Coming home, can he spoil their season? Or will Jared Goff get a little bit of revenge on the Rams? This guy, all kinds of good storylines. I'm here for it. I'm taking the Lions in this one. I think they're the better team. I like the Rams. I think it will be a close game. I hope it's a good game. But give me the Lions. Who you got, man?
Yeah. You know that the Rams have won 7 out of their last 8 games?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're not like crazy wins over like great teams, but like the Seahawks, pretty good team. They beat the Cardinals with Kyler Murray being back. They beat the Browns, I think, the week before Joe Flacco came back. Then they lost to the Ravens, and then they beat the Commanders, the Saints, the Giants, and then the 49ers backup team this week. But still, I mean, also a pretty good push stretch to get to the playoffs after a not great start for them. That being said, I'm also going to go with Detroit. Detroit has a fire lit under them right now, and if they lose their first home playoff game in 100 years at home, like I don't think they can bear to live through that. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that place is gonna be fired up, and I think that Dan Campbell's gonna have those boys fired up. I think it's gonna be an electric atmosphere in Detroit on Sunday night. Which brings us to Monday Night Football, 8:15 over on ESPN, ABC, and ESPN Plus. We have the 5 seed Philadelphia Eagles, 11-6, kind of hobbling their way into the playoffs. This is a team that we pretty much thought they had the NFC East on lock. It was over with. They had the division. The Cowboys were basically locked into that 5 seed spot. And on the last day of the season, the Eagles can't get it done against the Giants, falling to the 5 seed. They get a trip to Tampa to take on the 9-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because somebody's got to win the NFC South, and why not Tampa? I actually think Tampa has a good chance in this one. Philadelphia 3-point favorites on the road. If the Bucks looked better in their finale against the Panthers, I think I would pick them. And I still really want to pick them just because I think the Eagles have looked so bad and they're in such disarray. And somebody said it, I don't remember who, but somebody on ESPN, I think, said it this week that what's going on with the Eagles isn't a 1-week fix. Like, this isn't something that you can just flip a switch and they're going to be fine. There's some real, like, fundamental issues going on with that team. I think a lot of it starts with the defensive side not being able to stop much. The move to have Matt Patricia take over as defensive coordinator essentially has not been well. I just think there's a lot of issues there, and 1 week isn't going to fix them. Luckily for them, they do have to face Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are probably the worst of the 7 teams in the playoffs on the NFC side. But I think the Bucs have a shot in this one. I really do, and I really want to pick them. I just feel like if I pick them, I'd be getting a little too spicy with it this week. So again, as much as I want to, by default, I feel like I have to pick the Eagles. But man, if the Eagles win, they're probably going to get stomped in their next matchup. I don't see their next matchup going well, because it's going to be against either Detroit or San Francisco, presumably, or Dallas, I guess it could be. But I mean, it ain't gonna go well. It ain't gonna go well for them against either of those 3 teams. But yeah, give me the Eagles. Who you got, man?
I'm on the same page. If Baker is healthy, I would pick Tampa Bay. But as we've learned, hurt Baker is bad Baker, and I don't think it'll be pretty. I'm almost tempted to say this probably shouldn't have been a night game. They probably should have just swapped
It
this
shouldn't
with
have.
Cleveland,
This
Houston.
should have. I mean, I guess I was gonna say this should have been the 1:00 game on Sunday, but Steelers Bills also feels like a 1:00 game.
This could have been 4:30 on Saturday.
It could have been, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am going to pick Philly. I do agree that this game, whoever wins this game, isn't making it to the championship. This is just, they can say they got a playoff win and Jason Kelsey can retire. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So give me the Eagles in this one. As much as I agree. I think Tampa, I think it could be close, but I don't trust a Baker who's hurt.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, really, the three teams out of the 14 that made the playoffs on AFC, NFC, both sides, that I can say definitively are not making a championship are the Eagles, Bucks, and Steelers. I think the other 11, I could make an argument for any of them to go on a run, make it to the championship, potentially win a Super Bowl. But definitively, I think the Bucks, Eagles, and Steelers are all out of it. I think they're playing for a consolation prize.
That would be tough. Yeah, for them to get through that gauntlet.
Yeah, and I think it'd be tough for the Packers and Rams. I think those are probably the next two teams that I'd be like, ooh, it's going to be tough. But I think there's an argument to be made for both of those teams where there's not really one for these other three. Well, I think we have a good one for Wildcard Weekend. First round of the playoffs is a fun one, usually, and hopefully we've got some wild magic in store for Wildcard Weekend. I think it's going to be fun. As always, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us on whatever format you're doing so. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever. We appreciate it. We love you. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button. That way you're notified every single time we go live. We do usually do the podcast on a weekly basis. We just have missed the last couple. We will be back next week for sure. We're not missing any of the playoffs. I can guarantee you of that. We're going to make it happen. So we'll be back next week for the divisional round. But for now, Wildcard Weekend should be fun. And as always, I think that's that.
Good chow.